Hey, welcome to the Glen Podcast, the best podcast you'll listen to all day. Sponsored by Mission Blueprint. Hey, welcome back again to my favorite chiropractor.
I just keep people aligned. And just, the funnest thing about my job is when people are done being treated, they always stand corrected. That's the whole point of my podcast here today with you is I'm going to get you to stand corrected.
Oh, amen. Amen. I need to stand correct. That's great stuff. Didn't you go to a conference a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I did. It was pretty incredible.
What's one takeaway from that conference?
One. So probably just one. Probably the one that stands out right now the most actually goes back to one of the earlier podcasts we did about autophagy and about fasting and nutrition. Because behind all that, it's gut, right? Like the food we eat and how we digest and everything else. And one of our keynote speakers, she was amazing. I don't have my paperwork in front of me, but she talked about how a single dose or a single treatment, a series of antibiotics completely annihilates the gut flora, the gut bacteria that help our body digest food and puts the right chemicals and the right subproducts into our bloodstream that allows us to be healthy. And
like a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, pretty much. Just clears the environment. And what has happened, and this is just where research and knowing history and understanding, you have to inspect what you expect kind of thing. The incidence of colorectal cancer has been climbing exponentially for the last number of years. And now for men, colorectal screening used to be something you did at 60 or 70. Then it was 50. Now the new recommendation is 45 because there's such a higher incidence for men of colorectal cancer. Well, the bugger of it is that once you do the nuclear bomb, the antibiotics in your gut, they don't come back. They were given to you by your mother during breastfeeding with those early years in life. And you can't get back what you destroy. And so you have to rebuild it, and you have to be really intentional about rebuilding it because so much of our food is processed these days that they showed men whose diet consists of more than 30% processed food, that's meals that are not prepared in the home, but in fast food or restaurant type settings, have just this exorbitant, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, incidence of colorectal cancer. And she said this isn't negative news, this is a wake-up call, because if you eat 35 different fruits or vegetables every week, you can rebuild these guts, especially if you are using more farm-to-table type products. So locally sourced vegetables, locally sourced things, things out of your own garden or things that you can buy at the farmer's market. And she was hilarious. She goes, you all are probably rolling your eyes. This is going to be hard. You can't add 35 different fruits or vegetables. And she goes, make a bowl of oatmeal, put in some cranberries, put in some cinnamon, put in some nutmeg, throw in a little bit of maple syrup. And she goes, for the heck of it, throw in a little bit of almonds. She goes, you got 6, one meal.
Yeah.
She goes, eat a salad. Have mixed greens. She goes, you got 3 different greens. Throw in some raisins. Throw in some banana, apple, walnuts. You got another 6.
Pumpkin seeds.
Yeah. She's in one day you've already got 12 out of the 35.
Dude, I'm getting hungry. Keep going.
Right? But it was all about microbiome and how much that is affecting the health and well-being of our aging population. And the wake-up call for me with that was that affects you and I the most right now, because eating what we eat now isn't about how we feel today. It's the path of either going towards us being healthier and having good, healthy insides and outsides 10, 20, 30 years from now, or a breakdown in our gut and our system the other way. And so between the autophagy with the intermittent fasting I'm doing now and with the renewed wake up about, okay, I've really got to be eating healthier and throwing a splash of exercise, this is going to be a transformational year. I'm so excited. So excited.
What percent of knowledge do we understand regarding the immune system, the gut, particularly in the gut area?
Fractional. We don't understand.
Okay, so this is my problem with all these injections we're getting. Humans are getting all these vaccinations, injections, flu shots, whatever it is.
Chicken pox.
Whatever it is.
Yes.
And I'm not necessarily saying I'm anti-vax because of this, but we're putting all these things in our body that have been foreign. If you add up all the years we've been on this planet for millions of years, according to some of you, we start putting all these injections and we barely understand our immune system. Isn't this a gamble? It's kind of like Russian roulette to me. How do we know how?
We don't. We don't.
See, you're going to react different than I'm going to react different. And I'm going to react different than someone who grew up in Africa. And they're going to react different than someone who grew up in China with different atmospheres and different foods. It's so complex.
Be honest about this. Antibiotics have barely been around 100 years. We don't even know how that affects generationally 5, 6, 7, 8 generations within a person's body. And we just don't know. We just don't know. And somebody who wants to stand up there and tell you that they know, they may know what they know today. They don't know about what tomorrow's going to bring. So it was great. It was great. It was great speakers, a whole series of them. Hopefully we can inject some of the data and some of the cool things I learned in the podcast coming up this summer.
And don't you think there has to be a return to a food common sense? Eat plants that grow from the ground. Grow them yourself. When you have a cow, you butcher the whole thing and eat everything like they used to. And stop eating McDonald's 2 meals a day. I mean, just if you listen, I heard one scientist say, eat whatever you want, just make it yourself.
But the problem is we are now living in a social culture where everything is always available. The average American has enough food in their home if they eat everything out of their cupboards for 3 days. Most of it's in a container. Most of it's in a box. Most of it's been bought from Kellogg or Post, or, it's been frozen up by Russell Stover's. Our society craves instant gratification and convenience. They just want what they want when they want it. And they're not willing to, we've lost that art of what does it take to really make a great soup. You can't make a great soup in 20 minutes. It needs time to blend. It needs time to let those flavors work through. You need to let the oils leave the leaves of the basil plant and get into the tomato and interact with the acid and give it that amazing flavor that only you can create in a kitchen.
When I was in Europe, I got to travel for 4 months. So I went to Franciscan University. I stayed in Gaming, Austria. We had classes Monday through Thursday. And then Thursday evening, we jumped on a Euro and went wherever we wanted for the whole weekend and came back and did it all over again. One of the things we love to do is, of course, we dive deep into their cultures. We eat their foods, we drink their wines, and of course, bread and wine. In the last podcast, I talked about Abraham meeting his king, Melchizedek, and offering bread. We ate bread and wine all the time and ate their foods. And I talked to Europeans, and they would say this, and sorry about the vulgarity, but they would say, you Americans, you come over to Europe and you eat our good foods and you drink our good wines and you appreciate our beautiful architecture. And we Europeans, we go to America and we eat and drink your, and then he would say shit.
Uh-huh.
And it is so true. Because ladies and gentlemen, what I want to say to you is, have you ever had a bowl of homemade chicken noodle soup where you take organic chickens, you take their bones, you take the meat off, you take the bones after you cook them, and then you put them in a pot with water and celery and carrots and whatever else you put in there, and you simmer that all day and all night, and then you create your own broth, and then you take that chicken, and then you make homemade noodles, and you add carrots and celery, and then you put a few spices in, and then you make a homemade loaf of sourdough bread, which you have this starter that you have the starter.
I've seen your wife do that.
And the bread comes out of the oven and has to cool for an hour. And then you bring the soup to the table and you have the homemade bread with homemade butter and you eat and you think this is the best thing I've ever had.
But it's with time, patience.
Yes, it's going to be a sacrifice, but you may never go back to McDonald's again.
Hopefully. You talk about chicken noodle soup. One of my favorite stories from college. Dear friend of mine, Kelly Dona. She's on the softball team. She's amazing. I don't even know where she's at in life now. But she got really sick. I don't remember if it was during the spring semester or fall semester, but she got just wiped out, sick, couldn't move. And I remember staying up most of the night making her homemade chicken noodle soup just for her, just to get her to feel better, and taking 2 quart jars to her apartment and like doing the knock on the door and run down the hall, because this is before cell phones and everything else. You know, you had the phones took to the wall, and it, couldn't text and be like, "Hey, I'm stopping by the house. I'm going to drop this off outside for you," but just knock on the door and step away. And but you just brought back that memory for me. It was cool.
As a chiropractor,
Okay.
let's say I'm new to the chiropractic mindset.
Okay.
What's the number one thing I can do to improve my health?
So, what controls all systems in the body?
Water?
Nope. What's your master control?
The brain.
It is. And it's really electricity. And if you really want to get spiritual about it, it's the spirit. Because your mother had an egg cell and your dad had a sperm cell, neither of which was really a cell. They were half cells. Each of them had half of your parents' DNA. And that single sperm cell found that egg cell and in an instant became a new cell. Neither of which had any ability to create life in and of itself. But as soon as those two halves become a whole, there's a force, there's an energy, there's a spirit, there's something there that now drives that cell from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 16 to 32 billion. And here you sit in front of me.
Yeah. So what you're saying is we are electrical. I mean, that's
We are.
because we could be electrocuted.
We can be electrocuted, but what is electricity? Nobody knows even what electricity is, because we're all taught in science that electrons surround a cell and a nucleus, which has protons and neutrons in it. Except it's the observer effect. Electrons are continuously moving in and out of existence. They aren't a static, hard thing like you and I can touch one. Oh, we can go touch an electron. It doesn't happen that way. They're theoretical, but it's what holds stability of two cells like water and hydrogen holding together into a thing that we can feel called water. So you ask about, you're new to a chiropractic world. Chiropractic is based in how well does this animating energy that's inside your body that we know is created by the brain animate all of the tissues of the body, whether it's your muscle groups, your digestive system, your respiratory system, your heart system, your integumentary system, because it's never a Band-Aid that heals you. It is something from the inside, all the building blocks that are inside there, and the nervous system recognizing that there's an extra hole in your body that's not supposed to be there, and we need to stitch that up. And it heals from the deepest layers to the outside layers. That's why you get a scab over top of a scratch or a cut or surgical site. And that body has to heal from the inside out, always. So chiropractically, that's what's ironic is people find chiropractors when they hurt, when they are in pain, completely missing the point of our job isn't to take away pain. Our job is to take away what's causing the pain. And now pain can be manifested by your thoughts. If you're got stinking thinking, you just have a negative outlook on life. You've been through trauma. You've been through emotional trauma. You're triggered by environmental things that make you feel pain from your childhood or in your adult life. There is the other side of the coin for us as chiropractors, that it's about expression of life. And pain is a signal that my life is not okay anymore, that that I can't do what I want to do. I'm suffering in a way that I haven't had to suffer before. And so what's magical about my work is I watch people who transition from being in pain, and we go through a series of care with them, typically over a course of a month or 6 weeks, and we come back and we have a refresher of that initial conversation that brought them in for their care, and we talk about how have we done. And not always, but more times than not, just feel better. I feel really good. Okay. What else? Well, I started sleeping better. I haven't been so crabby with my wife. I haven't been so short with my husband. I've been down on the floor playing with my kids. I got a college student taking care of right now. She goes, I haven't felt this good since I was a teenager. And she's 22 years old, high school athlete. She goes, I didn't know that I could feel this good again. I thought I was just getting old. I'm like, oh, honey, you're half my age. Like, you can't be old at 22. And we've got older people that just get renewed life. We got a 70-year-old lady who is back walking almost 2 miles a day. And she can't believe it because since she was 55, 60 years old, she just had this nagging foot and back pain, and she didn't know that she could move and let alone just not be in pain, but actually feel better. So in the foundation of what we do, you just have to know that it's about electricity and electrical transmission from the brain to the body, and that we move bones out of the way to free up that very, very small little electrical wire that comes from your brain down your spinal cord out to your body, that thing can have trauma anywhere from its origin in the brain down to the smallest joint going to the tip of your toe. And as chiropractors, we just have to unlock the potential that's there and then get the heck out of the way, because that spirit, that energy that created you, that is you, that innate intelligence, that universal intelligence is going to determine what to do with it. And it's such a stark contrast where when people go to the doctor, they want the doctor to fix me. Give me that prescription. Give me that pill. Give me that medicine for my kid who's bouncing all over the walls and has ADD. And we take kids who have ADD and go, awesome, this is so cool. You just want to move. Let's make it happen. And what we find is this insane imbalance between left brain and right brain, and how the two hemispheres of the brain don't talk to each other. And so one side of the hemispherical side of the brain is just constantly overcharged, and that electricity has to go somewhere. It has to ground out. So you get a kid who's hyperactive. They bounce their knees. They want to go back and forth. They're up and down. They're crawling all over. Look at small children, toddlers. It's not until we try to put them in a schoolroom setting where they have to sit and idle that electricity that we start to see them be outwardly over rambunctious to what many parents or what many teachers would find distracting or annoying. We used to welcome that chaos because that's how we learned. And just watch boys and girls play. Boys learn through trial and error. They learn through destroying things and rebuilding.
Right.
My wife talked about being a little girl and just playing with dolls and that imagination side of her life. And we see that her now as a graphic designer. Like, we all have strengths in there that just need to be unleashed. And when it's not, then we're not living our full potential. We're not living what's fully capable.
See, you and I are in the same type of work, and there's crossover, a lot of crossover with you and I. You deal more with the physical body, but we're both really
working with the spirit.
We're working with the spirit. We're both really looking at the internal. And I'm not saying none of modern medicine would do that, but I don't really see that very much in modern medicine as I do in the chiropractic. But in my world, I'm looking at the supernatural. In the root, I think of the root of every problem, for me, in my world, goes to unforgiveness.
Of course.
Who aren't you forgiving? And a lot of people don't even see it.
Well, they don't forgive themselves.
And so then God, right, that's part of it too. So one of the, I operate, God has given me some supernatural gifts, and I think he's given them to everybody, but I just kind of found out later in life, there's tools in my tool bag I never even thought I could use. And oh, that's what it's for. It helps me help people get to what is the underlying issue. And when they realize, oh, I've hated my dad ever since I was 6, or oh, my aunt died with whom I loved, and I haven't forgiven her because she simply died and left me.
Right, abandonment.
And it goes on and on and on and on and on.
But isn't that funny how, and I maybe not funny, but ironic how it comes back to Jesus' teaching. Love. We're judging. You left me. You abandoned me. Instead of being, wow, at your funeral, I'm going to be so grateful that I got to know you, that you were a friend of mine, that we've got to spend this time together. I'm not going to be mad that you're gone. I'm not going to be mad the day my parents die. And I'm going to be sad, but I'm going to celebrate all of the joy and all the opportunities I had to get to know them and to be part of their life and to have them be part of my life and my kids' life. It isn't something to be sad about or to feel negative about. And this might offend some people, but it's just how I look at life. It's a life of gratitude, and a lot of us miss that. A lot of my clients are missing just a simple pause and going, wow, I love my wife. She's beautiful.
It goes back to that. I think it's a country song. And this really, I believe, is true. And the main problem, we are looking for love in all the wrong places. We really are. In our modern culture, there's so many things that we think are loving or good for us that we drink or partake in or consume, and it leaves us in the state of, failure, depression, despair, not fulfilling. And it wasn't until I was 19 years old that I really received this outpouring of love. Now, I've had it before that, but it was now intentional. I was seeking out intentionally. And when I received that outpouring of love, that began to change everything for me.
You start off with this comment about me at my conference a couple of weeks ago, and I'll back into one of the other big things that we talked about there of how much your mental gratitude, your mental place is for what your outcomes will be. You talk about spiritual and not forgiving and all those aspects, and that's a huge factor in how you will express yourself in the church setting, who you'll show up when you go to church, whether you'll go to church or not, if you think there's something you can get out of that, to how we just show up as people to our family, our friends, our community around us. And she talked about, you want to get a real gut check. You want to get a real check on what's important to you or what you think matters to you. She said, go on a fast, go on a digital fast, go on a mental fast, turn off the TVs, turn off your cell phones, get rid of all of the things that are just your conveniences, and find out where your pain points are. Take a journal, make a log of the things that make you anxious, the things that you're worrying about, the things that are distracting you, and then have that real conversation with yourself of, does this really matter? Or am I just addicted or sucked into the world in a really unhealthy way? That's the cool part about my work, is that you get a chance to break through and have really cool conversations with people about stuff like that.
Yeah, I just recommend, ladies and gentlemen, you do what Dennis just said. Take a retreat from the world. Shut all the noise off. I mean, I'm just as caught up as anybody.
We got family camp coming up this summer, right?
Yeah. What I'm saying is I wake up in the morning and I grab my phone and I want to see what's going on. And usually today's world, it's crazy, but
we feed our addiction. Like, oh, I want to know what the chaos is. I want to know what I'm missing. And it's like, really? Do you think my kids would rather I went and sat and had to sit on the couch with them and read them a book? Wouldn't that mean more to them than me knowing what I'm missing in the world that I'm not going to go change anyhow?
Yeah, it's so interesting.
It is. I mean, when you start waking up to these little things, and this was our speaker's point, was you don't really know how controlled by the strings, how much puppets we really are, until you actually have to start cutting the strings.
Cut the strings, baby. It's time.
It is.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're speaking to you today in a way that is different. Take a step back in life. Reevaluate everything. Ask someone who's closest to you, whether it's your spouse or your best buddy, your best girlfriend, and say, what's wrong with me? You want a wake-up call? No, be honest. What do you see? What areas could I improve on? Or what areas am I lying to myself? But the most important person to ask that question is God.
Yeah.
God, what is wrong with me?
You used a great point last week. My wife, I was sitting on the couch early morning, Thursday morning, before we got started making breakfast, and I had a new game on my phone. It's just this circle, and it's got 6 letters in it, and it's like a crossword, but you just got to make up anywhere between 8 and 18 words out of these 6 letters. And I didn't think I was obsessed with it. It was just, something to pass my time, and I liked what it did for stimulating my brain of kind of, okay, my vocabulary and how good I'm at my spelling and things like that. And my wife had said comment 2 or 3 different times about, "Well, you playing that game again?" Yeah. And it took me being at my conference and having kind of this profound, like, wait a second. My wife noticed that. She's missing me. She didn't tell me she missed me, but she asked the question, and I wasn't listening.
Yeah, so moms and dads, this is really good, Dennis, what you're saying. Moms and dads, how many times do your kids tug on you and you shrug them because you're on your phone? That's really bad.
They learn. They learn what's important.
Yeah.
Our 2-year-old, 3-year-old almost now, I mean, he brings mom's phone to her wherever she's at because she doesn't have it on her hand.
Yeah.
And he's learned that that's supposed to be in mom's hand. That's important.
So what happens in 10 years? You can't figure out why your kids can't stand you.
You're right.
Because the phone trumped your love for them.
Uh-huh.
It's crazy.
But I challenge, like this speaker we had, I challenge you to take a break from it and just watch yourself, watch what happens with your family. Like she said, have a family game night with no Xbox. So take away the Xbox controllers from your kids, lock them up in a safe, someplace where they can't get to them. Their online access, turn off the Wi-Fi, and see what happens. See what your family turns into when they can't have all their conveniences, what they think is so important. And it's not. It's so not.
Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's your challenge for the week.
Yeah.
Live in silence. Get rid of the phones. Get rid of the internet. Just do it one night. Have a family. We used to play marbles with a marble board or cards.
She said 24 hours. So Tristan and I talked about it. We're going to do noon on Saturday till noon on Sunday.
That's a good idea.
Because 24 hours in there will be all Saturday afternoon. Sunday morning, we do church and Sunday school anyhow. And at noon, we can be back in and catch up, and then we can still have our phones to FaceTime with family in the evening. But Saturday afternoon is going to be ours, and Sunday morning is going to be ours.
Yeah,
we're reclaiming it.
That's a great idea. We used to, and we're going to reinvoke this, we used to do on Fridays. No media on Fridays. No TV, no phone, nothing on Fridays. It gets kind of hard with school, but Saturday might be a better option. But yeah, try it for 24 hours and reflect, and God will speak to you. Because what happens is people say, God doesn't speak to me. It's because you're living in noise and you can't hear him. So be in a position where, he's speaking to me. And honestly, I'll end with this. 3 weeks ago, I did a personal retreat. I just needed to get away, clear my head. And if you found out what I actually did on the retreat, you'd say like, that's a retreat? You did this? I'm like, I know. I don't know how to do a retreat well. But what happened in the middle of that retreat is I went into a huge moment of silence, and I started worshiping God with my guitar again. And the Lord spoke to me afterwards and said, you need to stop doing this one particular thing in your life. It's hurting you. And I'm like, oh. I would have never thought about that.
You told me a couple weeks ago you noticed the change even from my being gone for a few days. Yeah. And that's the same type of thing of there's a wake up, and there's there's something there in that silence and that peace that all of us need to reclaim and refine.
Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, you are loved, and may God strengthen the bars of your gates. God bless you.
God bless, man.
Thanks,
Good
buddy.
job today.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Glenn Gower Podcast, sponsored by Mission Blueprint. Mission Blueprint is a nonprofit ministry started by Glenn and Jamie to sanctify the family. Our income is donation-based, and we need your help. Please support us financially by going to www.mission-blueprint.org and be a part of our financial team. Thank you, and may God strengthen the bars of your gate.